Hello. This press conference regarding the situation in Ukraine is being held in the Sir John A. Macdonald Building in Ottawa on Friday, February 25th. I'm the moderator, Greg Quinn with Market News International. Avec nous aujourd'hui le Premier ministre Justin Trudeau, la ministre des Affaires étrangères Melanie Joly, also with us Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, Minister of Defense Anita Anand, Minister of Immigration Sean Fraser, and Minister of International Development Harjit Sajjan. For those who are dialing in, I remind everyone to stick to best practices to minimize outside noise. We should have something like 10 minutes for questions with the Prime Minister and perhaps another 10 with the other ministers after that. That housekeeping done, let's begin with opening remarks from Mr. Trudeau. Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon. Welcome to the fifth daily press conference of this week with me. I'm joined here today by Minister Joly and virtually by Deputy Prime Minister Freeland and Ministers Anand, Fraser, Sajjan to announce further measures in response to the tragedy in Ukraine. The world is witnessing the horrors of President Putin's war of choice. This is a brutal, needless attack on a sovereign, democratic country. It is an atrocity for Ukraine's over 40 million innocent citizens and for the world. Le mépris du président Poutine pour la liberté, la démocratie, le droit international et la vie humaine doit avoir des conséquences. Plus tôt aujourd'hui, j'ai eu une rencontre avec nos alliés de l'OTAN. J'ai aussi eu un appel avec le Premier ministre britannique Boris Johnson pour parler de nos actions concertées en réponse à la situation qui se détériore rapidement. Comme on l'a fait clairement savoir, le Canada, avec ses alliés et ses partenaires, est prêt à intensifier sa réponse et à imposer des conséquences encore plus lourdes au président Poutine et à ceux qui l'aident. Today, Canada is announcing our third set of severe, coordinated sanctions. First, we will be imposing sanctions on President Putin and his fellow architects of this barbaric war, his Chief of Staff and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. These men bear the greatest responsibility for the death and destruction occurring in Ukraine. Additionally, I am confirming Canada's support to remove Russia from the SWIFT payment system, a critical part of the global banking system. We've made it clear that all options are on the table when it comes to imposing steep costs on Russia's unjustified and unprovoked invasion, and that includes taking steps to exclude Russia from making financial transactions around the world. Excluding Russian banks from SWIFT would make it even more difficult for President Putin to finance his brutalities. Canada is also announcing that we will levy additional sanctions on Belarus and its leaders for abetting President Putin's invasion of a free and sovereign nation. These will target 57 individuals and are in addition to the dozens of existing strong sanctions already leveled against Alexander Lukashenko's regime for their repeated, systematic human rights violations and decades of oppression of their own people. Aujourd'hui, le Canada annonce une troisième série de sanctions concertées. Ces sanctions visent le président Poutine, son chef de cabinet, ainsi que son ministre des Affaires étrangères, Sergei Lavrov. Elles visent aussi le régime du Belarus, qui a facilité cette invasion. De plus, on annonce également que le Canada appuie fortement le retrait de la Russie du réseau bancaire SWIFT. Le coût humain de cette crise est énorme. Le monde est témoin des scènes tragiques de bombardements et de déplacements massifs. Le président Poutine provoque une crise de réfugiés en Europe. Je sais qu'il est dans la nature des Canadiens de vouloir aider. Les Canadiens sont toujours prêts à faire leur part et à être généreux pour les gens les plus vulnérables. Alors aujourd'hui, on annonce que notre gouvernement va donner une somme équivalente pour chaque dollar donné à la Croix-Rouge canadienne en réponse à la crise humanitaire en Ukraine, jusqu'à concurrence de 10 millions de dollars. Today, we are announcing that our government will match every donation you make to the Canadian Red Cross Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Appeal, up to $10 million. This money will go directly to supporting relief efforts in the region. This is in addition to the $50 million for development humanitarian aid previously announced and the $620 million in sovereign loans we have made available to Ukraine's government. On a more personal note, let me just say that I've had the pleasure of getting to know Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, quite well over the past number of years. Like I told him when we spoke yesterday, I am inspired by his resolve and his devotion to his country. He is the embodiment of the courage of Ukrainian people, and just like him, Ukrainian people are showing incredible strength and resilience. President Putin's war on Ukraine is a war on freedom, on democracy, and on the rights of Ukrainians and all people to determine their own future. President Putin has opened the darkest chapter yet in his assault on the Ukrainian people, but he has made a grave miscalculation. People around the world, including in the streets of Moscow and St. Petersburg, are standing against his brutal and unnecessary war. They are standing with Ukraine, as are all of us. Canada, and increasingly the world, stand united and unwavering in our support of Ukraine. Merci.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll turn to questions now. I'm hopeful to get two in the room and at least one on the phone, and we'll start with Madeleine Blais-Morin, Radio-Canada, et then, I believe, Rachel Haynes, CTV. Madeleine.
Monsieur Trudeau, le premier ministre Ford a dit qu'il fallait accélérer l'accueil de réfugiés en disant qu'il y aurait au moins 20 000 emplois disponibles pour eux. Le gouvernement Legault a dit qu'il était prêt à ouvrir ses bras aussi aux réfugiés. Avez-vous une cible chiffrée d'accueil de réfugiés ukrainiens et un plan pour l'atteindre?
Ça fait plusieurs semaines que malheureusement on se prépare pour cette éventualité qu'on espérait ne jamais arriver, mais ça faisait partie de ces préparations de s'assurer qu'on puisse accélérer le traitement de demandes de réfugiés, de demandes d'immigration, d'extension de visas pour les Ukrainiens couramment ici au Canada. Mais effectivement, on est prêt à en faire beaucoup plus et sur ça, je suis content de passer la parole à mon collègue, le ministre de l'Immigration, Sean Fraser, pour une réponse. Sean?
Thank you, and let me begin by adding my voice to the Prime Minister's remarks and condemning the egregious behavior of Vladimir Putin on this unnecessary war of aggression. The thought that someone would be so callous as to erode the self-determination of another sovereign nation and its people is beyond comprehension. As the Prime Minister said, we've been preparing for weeks. Since January 19th, we have been launching our operational readiness. We started by beefing up resources in our Warsaw, Vienna, Bucharest offices and preparing London for an influx of additional digital applications. We also, on the same day, started prioritizing applications that were already in our inventory and have so far had in excess of 2,000 applications approved from Ukrainians who had some sort of an application within IRCC. Just the other day, we launched a dedicated services channel, so Ukrainians who are seeking to take advantage of certain programs can reach us more quickly by phone, by web form, and use the, if you are using the web form, I would urge you to use the keywords Ukraine 2022, and your email will be prioritized. We've also launched new measures already for Ukrainians who are already in Canada that will make it easier for them to stay by extending their temporary status and issuing work permits to them so they can provide for themselves while they are here. We have taken nothing off the table for looking for additional solutions, as we will be looking to do the very Canadian thing of helping those in need, and in particular the people of Ukraine who have some of the strongest people-to-people ties of any country in the world. When I look at the fact that there are more than 1 million Ukrainians in Canada today, this is something that we should do. It's something that we will do.
Le Centre pour la sécurité du Canada presse les organismes à renforcer leur défense en ligne dans la foulée de l'attaque en Ukraine. Est-ce que vous faites un lien avec la panne des systèmes informatiques de l'aluminerie Alouette et est-ce que ça vous préoccupe?
On sait très bien depuis très longtemps que la Russie utilise des moyens de cyberattaque pour essayer de déstabiliser les démocraties à travers le monde. Le Canada est fortuné d'avoir des experts en cybersécurité égal à n'importe qui dans le monde. Nos centres de cybersécurité sont excellents et sont en train justement de travailler pour faire des suivis sur les attaques qu'on reçoit, mais aussi pour prévenir d'autres attaques. Je peux vous assurer que tout est en train d'être fait pour assurer la sécurité des Canadiens, physiquement bien sûr, mais aussi dans le monde virtuel et dans nos systèmes informatiques. On va continuer d'être vigilants pour assurer qu'on protège bien les Canadiens en ligne.
Hi, Prime Minister. Rachel Haynes from CTV National News. In your remarks, you spoke about being inspired by President Zelensky's courage and resolve. He has spoken about being on Vladimir Putin's hit list and is preparing for that as a possibility as Russian troops move in. Do you believe that the additional sanctions that you are announcing today will be enough to prevent that from happening?
The world has responded in an unprecedentedly united and coordinated way to respond to Vladimir Putin's grave mistake. He has underestimated the resolve and the ability of Western democracies to stand up to defend not just our friends, but our values, our principles, and indeed the unprecedented period of peace and stability that has lasted over 75 years because of the rules and systems we put in place following World War II. Putin has chosen to upend 75 years of peace by invading a peaceful, unprovocative neighbor, and we are responding strongly and in a united way. The courage that President Zelensky and indeed all Ukrainians are showing in standing up to defend their homelands, to demonstrate that Vladimir Putin is wrong in the choice that he made, is inspiring. And with the sanctions that we're bringing forward on Vladimir Putin personally today, not just Canada, but other countries around the world, we're demonstrating that Putin's own personal wealth and his wealth that is being cared for by others is at significant risk because of his terrible mistake.
And as a follow-up, in your remarks, you also mentioned trying to get Russia out of the SWIFT system in Europe. When you just answered me talking about a united and coordinated approach, but there are a number of European countries who aren't willing to take that step yet. So what is your message to those countries who have not shown that same interest in kicking Russia out of SWIFT?
Russia has demonstrated a callous disregard for the systems and indeed the peace that we have fought for and won over the past 75 years. Peace that led to, yes, unprecedented safety and security for citizens in Europe and indeed around the world, but also led to unprecedented prosperity and growth for people in Europe and around the world. He cannot expect to overturn and end 75 years of peace with a violent and unprovoked attack on an innocent neighbor and still expect to be able to benefit from the financial systems and economic opportunities that that very peace has created over the past 75 years. So Canada, the UK, and a number of other countries are being very clear that the SWIFT system should be removed from Russia. And those conversations are ongoing with our European allies who are reflecting on this very carefully, as you've said.
We'll turn to a question from the phone now. I believe we should have David Aiken, Global News. My apologies. It looks like Émilie Bergeron, La Presse Canadienne.
Oui, bonjour, désolée, j'avais de la misère avec mon micro. Monsieur Trudeau, pour revenir sur les nombreuses personnes qui tentent de fuir l'Ukraine en ce moment, vous avez annoncé des mesures hier pour faciliter leur arrivée. Or, quand même, avec ce qui s'est passé en Afghanistan, certaines personnes pourraient douter que ces mesures-là soient suffisantes, pourraient craindre qu'un scénario pareil à ce qui s'est passé en Afghanistan se reproduise dans ce cas-ci aussi. Qu'est-ce que vous leur dites pour les rassurer?
Tout d'abord, on a développé des outils pour aider les gens en Afghanistan et on peut d'ailleurs appliquer ces outils ici en Ukraine. Mais en même temps, il faut reconnaître que la situation est extrêmement différente. Il y a des pays alliés qui ont des frontières avec l'Ukraine et on a déjà pu installer des Canadiens et des alliés qui vont être là pour recevoir des gens qui sont en train de fuir avec des connexions ou une citoyenneté canadienne pour accélérer leur sortie. Mais on sait aussi que la grande majorité des gens qui quittent l'Ukraine présentement vont d'abord quitter pour d'autres pays en Europe parce que c'est là la proximité. Ils peuvent se rendre en voiture ou quasiment à pied à certains moments. Mais par la suite, dans les semaines et les mois à venir, il va y avoir des gens qui vont vouloir venir avec des familles, avec la communauté ukrainienne ici au Canada. Et comme le ministre Fraser l'a dit, on va avoir les outils pour pouvoir les aider.
Et il y a l'Association des avocats et des avocates en droit de l'immigration qui a regardé ce que vous avez annoncé hier en matière d'immigration et qui dit que ça, c'est pas suffisant, que ça répond pas à tous les problèmes que peuvent rencontrer les gens qui en ce moment tentent de fuir l'Ukraine, même s'ils peuvent passer, comme vous dites, par d'autres pays. Alors, êtes-vous prêt à déployer d'autres mesures en matière d'immigration? Êtes-vous en train de regarder ça? Qu'est-ce qui pourrait s'en venir à ce niveau-là?
Absolument. Comme le ministre Fraser a dit, et je le répète, on est ouvert à en faire plus, à pouvoir aider encore plus de monde. On est en train de suivre attentivement la situation. Comme vous savez, tout ça s'est passé extrêmement rapidement sur le terrain. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui avaient une détermination de rester en Ukraine parce qu'ils doutaient que la Russie allait réellement faire l'inimaginable et envahir. Et maintenant que la Russie a envahi, ils sont en train de sortir, mais ça va prendre un peu de temps pour voir qui va vouloir venir au Canada, qui va attendre dans un pays voisin pour espérer pouvoir retourner à leur vie, à leur maison dans les semaines à venir. Tout ça est sur la table. Nous sommes en train de s'ajuster et de travailler avec nos voisins, mais ce que les Canadiens peuvent savoir, et sans aucune surprise, c'est que nous allons être là pour aider ceux qui veulent fuir, qui veulent venir commencer une nouvelle vie au Canada. C'est quelque chose sur lequel nous sommes en train de miser pour notre amour, pour l'avenir de tous les gens qui cherchent un meilleur avenir.
Thank you. I'm told we have one more question for the Prime Minister on the phone. Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star.
Thanks for taking my question. Prime Minister, the sanctions on Putin and his top aides there and Lavrov, can you talk about what actual impact you see this having? I mean, since no sanctions to date have deterred him in any way, do you have any reason to believe that he holds any assets, he or any of his circle hold any assets in Canada, that anything in a practical way will be affected?
First of all, Vladimir Putin has been in power in Russia for around 20 years, and regardless of the lack of respect for international norms and the behaviors in the past, including invading Crimea, we have not ever taken as a global community the step of sanctioning him personally. This is a significant step, and it has its impact in the fact that we are all, as Western countries, united and aligned on this. This goes directly at President Putin's considerable personal wealth, and you're absolutely right. He does not have much, if anything, in terms of personal holdings in Canada, but it's also going to be extremely important that we show a level of unity, a level of collaboration and firmness around the world, and prevent any loopholes from him trying to move money to places where he doesn't currently have money. It is an indication that Putin has made a terrible miscalculation in invading another sovereign country, because the response of the world has been firm, unequivocal, and directed at him and those who have enabled this wrong-headed and terrible decision to invade a neighboring country.
And as a follow-up, could you elaborate on your reasons perhaps for not taking some other steps, such as immediately either expelling any Russian diplomats from this country, or why you haven't immediately deployed the 3,400 that you've put on standby, given NATO's statement today?
First of all, as we've said, we continue to work closely with our allies on potential next steps, on things to do in the days and weeks to come. We recognize that this is unlikely to end quickly. We will need to be firm and resolved over possibly the long haul, and we are. But that's why putting things in place in the right order and the right sequence is extremely important. On NATO, I can tell you from the meeting we had this morning, allies are all resolved and resolute that we are there to protect Europe's eastern flank, to demonstrate that the alliance is strong and ready to respond were Putin to make the mistake of choosing to invade a NATO ally. And on top of that, that we are strong and united in our condemnation of their invasion of Ukraine. This is something we are going to continue to do, and part of that means being there to mobilize further forces to guard NATO's eastern flank, which Canada has, as most members have in NATO, put more troops at the disposal of NATO command to be able to demonstrate our resolve on this. On the issue of sanctions, I'm happy to turn it over to Minister Joly, who's been working extremely hard these past days and weeks to make sure that the sanction package is as strong as possible, as quick as possible, but also as seamlessly united amongst partners as it has been. Mélanie.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Tonda, for your questions. So on question of sanctions, today is an important day because it follows everything that we've done over the entire week, which is sanctioning people that are involved in this conflict, that are decision makers, not only President Putin today, but also now the Foreign Minister, the Justice Minister, the Minister of Finance, and also the Minister of Defense of Russia are now sanctioned, not only by Canada, but by the entire West. President Lukashenko of Belarus had been already sanctioned last summer. Now we are also making sure that his guard around him are sanctioned. And why we're doing that? Because we want to make sure that we're suffocating the Russian regime. That's our goal. And we know that this has an impact in terms of their own decision making, but we know also that we need to work all together in a united West to make that happen. The Prime Minister mentioned definitely the fact of not having any form of loopholes. That's important, but also we're looking at different methods, including creative methods, to make sure that we are putting maximum pressure on Russia right now. On the question of consular, I just wanted to, for Canada, it's important to have an ambassador right now in Russia. You heard the Prime Minister's speech. It is important for Russians to understand what is happening in Ukraine. The Deputy Prime Minister spoke in Russian yesterday, talked to the people in Russia. It is important that we reach out to them. 2,000 protesters were arrested by the Russian regime yesterday. It is important that the opposition within Russia is able to have access to facts. And my message also to Canadians that have families and friends in Russia, please tell them what you're seeing right now through our independent media. Please tell them what's happening in Ukraine. They need to know, and they need to talk to their friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that should be all the time we have with the Prime Minister today. Thank you, Messi. We will turn to time with other ministers now, and I believe we have Mylène Clette, La Presse, and then I'll turn to the phone for Ashley Burke, CBC.
Bonjour. Ma question est pour Monsieur Fraser. I'm sorry, I don't know if you speak French or not. I'll ask